If you have your Bible with you, open them up to John chapter 21. John 21, and just a little bit of setup beforehand. We are in the third week of this series, Breathe Deep, in which we're looking at the different encounters that people have with Jesus and how he brought life to them. And so this is what we're going to do today. I want you to have kind of a full understanding of what happens in this story. And so in just a second, I'm going to read this the whole way through, because we're not going to get it the whole way through as we kind of dissect it and go piece by piece. So I'm going to read it the whole way through. We're going to pray. I need to do just a little bit of teaching to make sure we get all on the same page, that we're all just coming from a same framework and understanding this morning. And then we'll kind of jump into the story and what it has to say to our lives. So again, we're going to read it. I'll pray, talk for a little bit, and then we'll jump back into it. So John 21. Starting in verse 1, and we're going to go to verse 14, and it says this. Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other disciples were there together. I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them, and they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. As soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it, and some bread. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish you have just caught. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. I just want to pause right there. Isn't that awesome? Jesus makes breakfast. I think that's fantastic. He's making breakfast. Not to be selfish, but if I was coming in and Jesus, Son of God, rose from the dead, was making breakfast, I would be expecting a little better than bread and fish. Like, he'd be like, come and have breakfast. Full omelet bar. But that's another story. So come and have breakfast. None of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. Let's pray. Lord, as we dive into this story this morning, my just request is that you would make the story clear to us, that we would understand maybe the things that we need to take up in our lives, maybe the things that we need to remove from our lives, the areas that we need to change, and just so at the end of the day, Lord, we could follow you closer and that we could follow you more passionately. And that's my prayer, is that when we leave here this morning after spending this time together, just that we would follow you with a greater heart than we had when we walked in. And I just pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. To understand this story, you need to understand the importance of calling. So I want to talk about calling just for a little bit to make sure we're on the same page. Calling is a term that is thrown around in churches a lot because people will talk about, well, you need to know your calling. You need to know what God has called you to do. And I think this is a good idea. I think it's important that we talk about this. But what happens is that we talk about calling just in these specific terms, that what happens in the end is a lot of people think, unless if I've heard like the voice of the Lord specifically to me, or unless if I've seen like a sign in the sky, then I can't do anything. I need to wait for God to tell me what he has called me to do. And I actually had an encounter with a friend who was graduating from college, and he had 4 different job options available. And so he's trying to figure it out, and he just got to the end. He just was like, I don't feel like God is calling me to do any of them. And so he moved back home with his parents. And I was like, I don't think God is calling you to move back home with your parents. But he was just like, well, because I don't have something specific, I haven't heard any voices or seen any signs, I don't think I should do anything. And there's 2 ideas of calling. We only talk about one. There's the idea of calling, the one that we talk about, that is a specific calling. This means God has called you to do something Specific. That's why it's got that fantastic name. It is a specific calling. It is when God will say, I want you to go here and do this. And we see this repeated over and over again in the Bible. We see different things where, like, he'll give voice or a sign or a feeling to someone, and they'll just know they have to go to this spot, talk to this person, and do this specific thing. So there is a specific calling. There is also, and this is very important, this is the thing that we never talk about, there is a general calling. And that is the fact there are things that we all as a whole have been called to. And they're the commands. They're the things that are written in the Bible. And so, like, the different things. You are called to love God and follow him. And so, like, when an instance comes up of, like, hey, I don't know if I should steal this or not, and God says don't steal, you don't need to pray about it. Because you are called to love God and follow him. You are called in the same way to love your enemies and love your neighbors and stand with the broken and the poor and the marginalized and those who are hurting and those who are oppressed. Like that is repeated over and over and over again in the Bible. And so when you see someone who is struggling, you don't need to pray whether or not you should reach out to them. Because the Bible already tells you to go help them. And so it's not like there's someone who's just like let's say you walk in here on a Sunday morning, and I don't think this happens often, I have not seen it happen yet, but there's someone who is just having, you can just tell something terrible has happened, and they're just like, they're sitting in a seat, and they're just crying, and they're distraught. You don't need to go, well, God, should I go talk to them? Like, just do it. Just go help them. If you see someone outside in the community who's struggling, just do it. These are areas of our general calling, things that you don't need to pray about. And I know that sounds weird because we're taught we should, you don't need to pray or not about whether or not you should do these things because we are all called to do them. Now here's another thing, and this is a whole series, but I'll just give you the end point. The way that you figure out your specific calling is you live out your general calling in areas that you're passionate about. And again, we could talk about that for 4 or 5 weeks. But if you're going, I don't feel like I have a specific calling, well, the way that you figure that out is you just do the things that God has called us to do in areas that we care about. And so for me, I don't figure out my specific calling by singing in the band. Not that I don't like music, but that's just not good for anybody. You don't want me doing that. And so I'm not going to find my specific calling by doing that. I'm going to find it by doing things that I'm good at while I'm following God's purposes. Now, this is why this is so important, is because the disciples had a specific calling. They had the general calling that everyone else is called to, but God had told them, these are the specific things that I am calling, that I am bringing you along for you to do. And so we see one of them very early on when the disciples are out fishing, and I think it's Peter in particular, I don't remember exactly, but they're out fishing, and they haul in this huge catch of fish, and then they come to Jesus, and Jesus basically says, from here on out, you are going to fish for men. And what he's saying is you're going to show people in the same way that you're trying to bring fish in, you are going to bring people in and show them who I am. And so he's telling them, you know what, I am changing your calling. Instead of just this general, you can do these things, this is the specific thing that I have called you to. Okay? Now this gets important as we get into this verse. So it starts with this. It says, afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them. And they said, we'll go with you. Now we just read that and we're like, okay, so they go fishing. We should be reading this and be going, no, don't go fishing. That's what you were doing, way back at the beginning of the Gospel of John. This is the end. You've already experienced all these things along the way. Why are you going back to fishing? Because they were called to fish for men. They weren't called to fish for fish. Now, indulge me for a second. This is the equivalent, and I apologize, of Frodo and Sam have made it through the marshlands. They've encountered all the different things. They fought the orcs. Okay, they've escaped the Nazgul. They fought the creepy, huge spider that's in the third movie. They gave me nightmares for weeks, kind of, so they made it through that. They go to Mount Doom. Just to be clear, Frodo and Sam are not my actual friends, okay? They're in a movie. They make it to Mount Doom. They take the Ring of Power. They throw it in the fire, and then they go back home, and everything's the same. If you watch the movie or read the books, that's the significance of it, is the entire journey, the entire experience that they have been on changed them, so that when they come back, they're profoundly different people, and they don't engage in the same things that they used to. And so when we read this here, this should break our hearts, because the disciples have been through so much. Now, I want to show you this just to be clear, because you may be going, well, how do we know that they weren't just fishing? Like, disciples got to eat. Like, I mean, that can't be all bad that they were trying to get food. And here's how. It's how they refer to two of the disciples. In the middle of verse 2, it refers to the sons of Zebedee. The sons of Zebedee. These were James and John. They were two brothers. Now, here's what's interesting, is in the entire Gospel of John, when it gives their name, says their name like that, it's trying to show us something important. In the entire Gospel of John, they are usually referred to as James and John, or the sons of thunder, which is just such a better name than the sons of Zebedee. Like, I'll stick with that. So it's either James or John, or the sons of thunder. 4 different times they're referred to as the sons of Zebedee. When they are first called by Jesus, and they're already fishing, when Jesus is with the disciples and he basically says, hey, they're going to take me and kill me, but I'm going to come back in glory. And they go, hey, could we be in the positions of power when you come back? And he kind of goes, did you miss the whole take me and kill me part? Because that was a big deal. So they say that. Another time is when Jesus asked them to pray and they fall asleep. And then here. And so when it refers to them as the sons of Zebedee, it's telling us that they are operating out of their old identity. They're not operating in the way that they should be at this point in time. And so when we read this, this is not like the disciples are here together and it's like, hey, we're bored, let's go fishing. This is, we don't know what to do with our lives now. We know God has called us to this, but we don't know what to do, so let's go fishing. This is important because we do this all the time. We do this over and over and over again. And it's so easy because the things that God has called us to are often difficult. They're often very challenging. They're things that make us uncomfortable. They're things that move us out of our comfort zone. And so when we see these things, we've got the option to step into it. But what we often do instead is we revert back to what's familiar. Why? Because it's familiar. And so we know it. And this is what is so easy, is that when you look at it and you go, well, there's nothing wrong with fishing. Like, there isn't. There's nothing wrong with fishing. And I imagine the disciples had this conversation. Well, like, we did a lot of good when we were fishing. Like, I know Jesus has told us to do this, but, like, fishing was good for us before. And, like, we made money and we made friends, and maybe we'll do that now. Maybe we'll go out on the boat and we'll meet some people, and we could even tell them about Jesus, and we can make some money, and we could give it to churches, and we could do these different things. And so fishing's not that bad. And here's the deal. Fishing's not bad. Fishing for fish is not wrong, except when you have been called to fish for men. And when your specific calling is to do this, to do anything else is disobedience. If you feel, if you know that God has said, this is how I am supposed to live my life, this is the mission that I am supposed to engage in, if you do anything else, then you're being disobedient. And that's where they're here. And it's so hard because fishing isn't wrong. It's just a thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Some of you would argue it's a very good thing. I understand that. I think it's kind of boring. But like you get in that spot and you don't really know where it is in the issue. And they're there and they're going, but we want to go fishing. We don't know what to do next. And so they slide into it. When you do this, you shrink what God can do in your life. And I understand, here's the deal, I understand in that moment, I understand it's scary. I understand stepping into that area of calling. I understand that's really difficult and that's complicated and there's a lot of fear associated with it. But you shrink what God can do in your life when you revert back to the familiar and the comfortable when God has called you to do this. And that's what makes what happens next in the story so important. This is in verse 4. It says, early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. I think that's so awesome. The way that John knows, because that's who it is, the disciple whom Jesus loved is John, the guy who's writing this, which is a little egotistical, but we can forgive him because he really knew that Jesus loved him. But the way that he knew that it was Jesus is because of the amount of the fish, because of the quality of the work that Jesus does. And so John's there, and they haul in this large number of fish, and he spots it, and he goes, oh my goodness, that's Jesus. That's the Lord. But then I think what happens next is even more interesting. It says this, as soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. I want to comment on two things on here. The first one I'll just take a second on. The second thing we're going to spend the rest of our time today on. It's the fact that John spots that it's Jesus, but Peter responds. You see that? Like, Peter is not the one who goes, oh my goodness, that's Jesus. John is the one who does that. But Peter is the one who is willing to jump into the water to go after him. And I think this is so significant for understanding what it means to actually follow Christ. Because I think for a lot of us, if you have much time spent in church throughout your life, what you've been taught is how to be the person to identify Jesus. And how that kind of works, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Please don't hear me that that's a bad thing. But what we often think is that if I'm going to follow Christ, I need lots of more information. I need lots and lots of more information, and I just kind of want to sit in that. And Peter shows us, you know what? It's the person who responds that is actually following Christ. It's the person who responds that is really following Jesus, and their faith is being stretched, and their faith is growing. And this is where I often hear it. And I want to. The reason why I want to address this now is simply because I don't hear it in our church, and I just want to make sure that I don't hear it in our church. And this is the way that it usually comes around. People will say, "I just really want to go deeper." If you've been in church long, you've probably heard that phrase in some way, shape, or form. I just really want to go deeper. And this is what I believe they're saying. And I'm not trying to be too negative on this, because I understand it may come from a place of real desire to follow Christ. Let me give you me first. I'm still working on love your neighbor as yourself. And I imagine I will be working on that for the rest of my life. Because that's hard. Now, I don't mean that's our specific neighbors, because Andrew, our youth pastor who led worship, actually is my neighbor. And so I'm not saying that as like, geez, this is not like, I'm not trying to drop hints in the message in terms of like the length of your grass or anything like that. Like, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But I mean, in terms of loving those around me as myself, I still struggle with that. And then I believe when we get to the idea of, I just want to go deeper, it's a matter of, I just want more information that I don't have to do anything with. I just really want to go deeper. Fill me with information so I can just sit in it and not have to change anything in my life. And I've had a few people who really didn't like my preaching. Now, I'm not saying that as like, are you kidding me? Like, okay, just here's that. Because I don't mean to make it about me, but it's kind of about me for the next minute or so. So I apologize for that. But sometimes for the people who are willing to talk to me about that, as we actually have those conversations as to why, what I can end up getting it down to is, for most of them, now this is not for everyone, because you may just not like me, and I understand that. My wife often does not like me as well, and so you can talk to her about that, because you're in the same camp. So one of the reasons why they don't like it is because I make things clear. Now, they wouldn't actually say that. I don't like how you make things clear, but this is why I believe that sometimes the Bible can be complicated, but I don't believe following Jesus should be. And so I want it to be clear. The problem with clear is you have to do something with it. You're very aware if you're following or you're not following. You're very aware when things are clear, whether you're being obedient or disobedient. And sometimes I think our desire for deep, when we say we want deep, what we really want is lots of information, lots of content, so I can get it muddled down and not really do anything with it. And so I can just go back, oh, that was interesting, or I can rest in, I didn't really understand that. And so you don't have to do anything with it. And I think that's what makes Peter's response so significant, is John spots it, but Peter responds. I just want to tell you, you want to be the latter version. You want to be Peter. This is not to say that study isn't good. This is not to say that information and knowledge isn't good, because most of my time is spent doing that. But if I've got to choose between one or the other, I always want to be the person who responds immediately, and that's important. Who responds immediately. Now I want to hit on the second half of what Peter does, because this is important. So this is verse 7 again. It says, then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. As soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. This is important. First note, Peter's not naked at this point in time, okay? Because I know some of you are concerned. They're like, why is he taking his garment off? Is he just like, I'm fishing, and it's just the guys, and it's kind of hot? Like, that's not what's going on, okay? So he is clothed, okay? So he's got clothes on, and he sees Jesus, and he wants to go to him, but just picture this. First, he puts his coat on. Have you ever tried to swim in a coat? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. When I was in youth group, we would take a ski retreat every year in the month of February. And the lodge thing that we stayed at had a lake behind it. And so one year there were a bunch of us guys, I think there were 5 of us, and we're like, let's go jump in the lake. I was like, we're so stupid. Why did we ever, now I would go, no, let's stay warm and inside, because that's smart. We're like, it's like 34 degrees outside. Let's go jump in the lake. And so my buddies, I was one of this group. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. We'll be cold. Okay. And so my buddies, they got down to just their shorts and their t-shirt. And I had an alternative idea. I thought, it's cold outside. And so if I bundle up and put my winter coat on and get my hat and get my gloves, then I won't be so cold because I have all this clothing on that I'll be good. And so they go out there and we all run. And so they're running really fast and I'm running how a 7th grade boy does with a massive coat on. So I'm going along, and then they all jump in the lake, and I jump in at the end, and as soon as I hit the water, I realize my stupidity, so I'm then trying to swim out of the lake, and I can't get full arm motion, so I'm just kind of doing this, because swimming in a coat is awful. The rest of this doesn't have to do with the story, and so they all ran back in, and immediately put warm clothes on, and I'm off on the side. Oh my gosh, so cold. So cold. And so it took me 10 minutes to get all my freezing cold clothes off so I could actually have warm clothes. My point was swimming in a coat is really hard. Okay, that's what I want to get at. But that's significant because when you read this, you go, why on earth is Peter putting on his coat to go swim? And the answer is really simple. He wanted no reason to go back to the boat. Because he knew that if his coat was in the boat, that he would have a desire to go back and fish. And he didn't want that to happen because he knew God had called him to fish for men and not for fish. And so what he does in that moment when John spots Jesus, he doesn't just jump right in. He makes sure he grabs his coat, he puts it on, because he's going, I am not coming back. And I want to make sure I have no reason to return. And then he jumps in. What he does, in essence, is he makes, as much as he can, he makes following Jesus a one-way street. And he wants to give himself no reason to turn back. This is incredibly difficult because we do this over and over again. We set up safety nets in our life so that if this following Jesus thing gets a little difficult, then we can fall back to this or we can fall back to that. And we'll go on all these different paths, and we'll see, like, in a moment, whether it's in a worship service or a small group or a conversation with a friend or reading our Bible prayer, and we'll get it really clear in that moment of this is what I am supposed to do, or this is who I'm supposed to reach out to, or these are the things that God has called me to do. And then 5-10 minutes later, maybe even in that moment, we get a little shaky. And we go, well, I'll just make sure this is here just in case. And I'll make sure this is here just in case it doesn't work out. And I'll hold on to this phone number or this job or this thing. And we leave all these safety nets in our life in case of following Jesus gets difficult or the specific thing that he has called us to gets hard, that we can fall back into it. I want to show you another example of this that I think is even more dramatic. And then we'll come back to Peter. This is the example of Elijah and Elisha, okay? It makes it really hard that their names are so close. I'm going to read it, then I'll explain it. What you need to know is Elijah's a prophet. Elijah, with a J, is a prophet, and he's about to call Elisha to follow him. And it says this, it says, so Elijah went from there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12th pair. Elijah went up to him and threw his cloak around him. Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, he said, and then I will come with you. Go back, Elijah replied. What have I done to you? I just want to pause right there. This is what happens. Elijah's a prophet of God who did these incredible things. He's walking along one day. He sees Elisha working, and he puts his cloak around him, which is a way of saying, I want you to follow me. I'm going to show you what I do. I'm going to show you how I work so you can be with me. And so he throws his coat around him, and Elisha comes up to him and goes, first let me say goodbye to my mom and dad. And Elijah's kind of put out, and he's like, what have I done to you? Why would you do that? Come follow me. But Elisha's actions next are so significant. It says this. It says, so Elisha left him and went back. He took his yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. He burned the plowing equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and became his attendant. That is so fascinating. So he leaves Elijah, goes back, realizes there's no one who's going to take care of these oxen, and so he kills them to have a feast. But then in order to cook them, he doesn't get some scrap wood. He doesn't get some nearby things, kind of start a fire together. He takes the plowing equipment that he needed for his job and burns it, and then cooks the meat on that. And so what happens maybe a week later when following Elijah is a little difficult? He's going to go, well, I could return back to, oh, wait, that's right. I already burned the plowing equipment. There's nothing to go back to. I can't go back because I've already removed that safety net in my life. And that's exactly where Peter finds himself as well. He wants to make sure, I want no reason to return to that boat. Not that there's anything wrong with boats, okay? And that's where it gets really hard, because some of these things, they're not actually bad things. They're just things. But he's going, even though fishing is good, God has called me to this, so I am going to take my coat with me to make sure I don't go back. And Elisha did the same thing. He's going, you know what? I'm always going to have a desire to turn back to this. And so you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to take the plowing equipment and I'm going to burn it. So I have no desire to go back. And so let's talk about this for us. And this is going to get a little pointed. What do you need to get rid of? What do you need to let go of? I think often when we think of following Christ and what it means to be a disciple of him, we think it's about adding stuff. And I need this, and I need a little more teaching, and I need a little more fellowship, and I need this. And what I've actually found, it's far more about subtraction than addition. It's far more about removing things from our life than adding more to it. And it comes down to this. One of the most frequent metaphors in the Bible of what it means to follow Christ is to be filled. To be filled. Here's the problem. For so many of us, our cups are full. And I don't just mean our schedules. I don't just mean our times. We've just got it so full with all these different things and baggage from the past and all these other things that happen in our life that when we follow Jesus, and often we'll say, like, I just don't feel like anything's different. Well, it's because you're full. How could you expect him to fill you when your cup is already full. And so it's a matter of figuring out what are the things that I need to pour out so that he can then fill me. What are the things that I need to leave behind for good so that I can follow him closer? I want to give you 3 categories of things to hopefully make it a little clearer to you. I want to talk about our habits, our relationships, and our ways of thinking. And again, I want to say this may hurt, this may sting a little bit, but I hope this will be helpful. The first category of things you may need to leave behind is your habits. And here's the deal. I think one of the clearest ones is some of us, and I say us, I don't say you, okay? We need to be less lazy. And I think that's huge. Like, we need to get off our butts and do something. So when I get off of work, my job is not physically tiring, but I'm tired when I get done. And so this is what happens. I get home, and my daughters are playing on the floor, and my Bible's behind me, and I turn on the TV. Now, is there anything wrong with TV? No, TV is great. Like, hear me. This is a testimony right here. TV is awesome. I love television. But you know what? In that moment, it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. But it's not helping me live out what I am called to. And so you know what? That is, in essence, something that I have to start leaving behind. And for some of us, I don't know. There's lots of things in there. You know what? Maybe we need to start waking up earlier. Maybe we need to start reading our Bible more. Maybe we need to start monitoring our health choices or our entertainment choices. And I know this gets difficult. And a lot of times what has happened in church history, and this is where the church has gone wrong, they've wanted to legislate people going deeper and people making these choices. The term that has come up for it is legalism, because it's born out of a good desire. We want people to go deeper. Like actually deeper, not complex information. We want people to follow Christ closer and leave behind these things that they should leave behind. But the problem is that if you make it a rule, if you make it a law, people want to throw it off. If you came to me and told me you need to watch less TV, I'd tell you you're dumb and you have a stupid face. I don't know. I'm not very good at insults. I'd say something like that. Just to be clear, you don't have a stupid face. I think you're wonderful looking. I don't know you people on the side because you're in the dark, but for these 3 sections, you look great. You do. And so when that happens, we just want to throw it off. But we all have to individually come to that decision. You know what are the habits that they may not be good things? They may not be bad things, but I just have to leave behind. Fishing is fine, except when you're called to fish for men. So maybe what are the habits you need to leave behind? Second thing is relationships. Relationships. And this is where it gets hard, is because there are no bad people. There are only people who are loved by God. Okay? That's significant. Everyone is loved by God. But it would be wise sometimes to say, I know God loves you, but I need you not to be so close to me in this season of my life. Like, this is not saying you're a bad person. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that God doesn't love you and God doesn't want to save you. But you know what? This isn't working right now because I want to follow Jesus like this and you keep making me go like this. So you need to just like be gone for a little bit. And God loves you. I love you. But you need to not be right next to me right now. And I know that's really hard. It filters into a lot of our background and a lot of our struggles. I've said it like this before. If you're a recovering alcoholic, you don't get a bar ministry. You just don't. That's not smart. If you struggle with lust, whether you're single or married, you don't get to have lots of relationships with people of the opposite gender. You don't. Like, that's just not smart, whether you're a man or a woman. If that's your struggle, if that's your pull, you don't get to have lots of friends who are girls if you're a guy and are guys if you're a girl. You just don't. It's not okay. And so there may be some relationships where it's not saying you're a bad person, not saying God doesn't love you, but it really comes down to, you know what, if I'm going to follow Christ, I need to leave this behind. And third thing is ways of thinking. And this is the hardest one because this is the most difficult one to identify. For some of us, we have a martyr complex where we just kind of feel like the world is just out to get us, and everything that comes our way is just so awful. For others of us, we need to, as silly as this sounds, we need to learn how to value ourselves. Like we think of ourselves as not significant, not important, and we need to learn to value ourselves. That, you know what? We matter. We have a part to play. Others of us, we need to learn to value others. And it's so hard because we always get to this. And I'll hear people say this a lot of times. And we have this happen a lot in church because almost everyone is a volunteer. We have 3 people who are not volunteers. And the rest of you work and you serve and so much. And sometimes schedules get busy and sometimes things get hard. And the things that I'll hear people say inside and outside of church all the time is, well, people just let you down. And when we often say it, we say it in a way like, they'll let me down. And I've said it, but I can't tell you how many times I've let other people down. And so it's so easy for us to see the faults and see the weaknesses in others without seeing the faults and weaknesses in ourselves. And so we need to learn to value others. We need to learn to see the significance of others and how God created them. Some of us maybe need to let some bitterness and some hurt go. That there was something that happened to us years ago and we have just held on to it and hung on to it. And you know what? You're right. It hurts. But maybe it's time to leave it behind. And it's so funny. It doesn't make sense to leave it behind. That's what's so hard. There's nothing logically, rationally that makes sense for us to leave these things behind us. Because naturally, we should lash out and we should want to hurt others. A couple of days ago, or weeks ago, I can't remember when it happened, and I'm not going to give names because it was some of your children, okay? I'm not going to say who it was, but it was probably some of your children. My daughters were playing, and a kid who's like, I don't know, like 4 or 5, I can't really tell at that age, they're all short, and he pushed one of my daughters down. Now, I did not sit there and go, well, that's okay, he pushed her down. I was like, oh, man, I am going to push that kid down. And like, I'm not a strong guy, but again, he's short. He's like here. And so like, I could kick him and he'd be good to go. Like I would win that. And so like he did that, and like my response in that moment was not, okay, I'll just let it go. It was, I'm going to get him. Like this is not going to happen again. But then I kind of calmed down and I went, no, I should just let that go. That's not that big of a deal. Nothing will come of that. Nothing good will come of that. But then this is what we do as adults. We metaphorically get pushed down by somebody, right? Except instead of actually wanting to push them down, what we do is we go to all our friends and we're like, did you see them push them down? You see me get pushed down by them? Yeah, that's right, they pushed me. Oh, they pushed you down too? They're always doing that. They're always pushing people down. I know everywhere they go, they're just going to push people down. Someday, someone is going to push them down. We should get together, come together. We'll push them down. They'll fall on their face. It'll be great. Like, I mean, don't we do that? We don't just sit back when someone pushes us down as adults and we don't just go, well, it's not that big of a deal. Nothing good will come of it. I should probably let it go and move on. We let it sit within us. And we start reaching out and telling everyone around us, they pushed me down. I'm ticked. I'm so hurt. It's like, brush your knees off. Go. And I think that's the thing. What are the things you need to leave behind? What are the things you need to let go of? And you're always going to have that desire to go back to the boat. You're always going to have that desire to go back, just like Peter. And Peter goes, I want to remove that temptation. Not that fishing is bad, but I am putting my coat on because I do not want to end up back in that boat because God has called me to fish for men. And so in order for you to do, whether it's general or specific, whatever it is that God has called you to do, you need to leave some things behind. You need to let go of some things and saying, you know what, that's past, I'm putting that behind me. I've got all these safety nets put up in case if I fall, you know what, I'm burning them. I'm taking them down because they do not need to be there. Because I'm going to make as clearly as I can, I want to make following Jesus a one-way street. because I know this way is better. In just a second, the band's going to come and we're going to sing a song. And I just want to ask you, please pay careful attention to the lyrics, because I think the lyrics of this song are so, so powerful. It talks about how it would be okay for you to do nothing. It would be okay for you to just sit and soak it all in and love Jesus. But how you know what? That God has actually called you to something more significant than just hearing about God, than just even worshiping. That he has called you to be part of what he's doing. But in order to do that, there's some difficult things we need to let go of. So let me pray for you. Father, as we gather here and oh Lord, I don't even know what is running through all of our heads. There are just countless things that we have to inspect, that we have to evaluate, that we have to be clear on as to, is this good? Is this you? Is this not? Is this me? And Father, I just want to ask, help us navigate that. Help us see that. For some of us, you know what? There is, as specific as this is, there is a Facebook contact who we need to delete because we need to quit checking in on how that person is doing. There are contacts in our phone that we need to let go of. There are events, instances, hurts in our past that we just need to say, you know what, it's never going to be better, and that's okay. I need to move on. And Father, my prayer is just this. That whatever it is you have called us to, whatever it is you have uniquely called all of us to and generally called all of us to, that we would take the necessary steps now so that we could follow you. And Father, I want to pray specifically for the person who has maybe for years sat around and thought, God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. And the whole time you're up in heaven going, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. Father, help us move. Help us move. Help us cut some things out of our life that have no business being there anymore. Help us to find and to follow you.